Thank you for joining us today for our ETRAGE webinar series. We typically host different topics within the design and manufacturing industry twice a month. You can find future webinars at etrage.com under events. A few housekeeping items. Everyone is muted. If you have a question, please use the Q&A icon. If we are not able to answer your question during today's session, we will follow up with you afterwards. A recording will be available on our ETRAGE YouTube channel later this week, as well as our website. I am Sinead Kimbrell, and with me is Ephraim Pawan. I am the sales manager here at ETRAGE and have been in the PTC channel since 2013. With me is Ephraim, who has been using PTC products for over 11 years, and also outside of being able to support our customers on one-off projects, also runs our help desk. Today, we'll do a short introduction of who ETRAGE is, and then I'll hand things over to Ephraim to go through our Windchill administration presentation, and we will follow up with any questions you guys may have. Again, use that Q&A icon if anything comes up during today's presentation. ETRAGE is a global company with over 20 years of experience in helping customers adopt PLM through their enterprise. This includes engineering, manufacturing, quality, purchasing, operations. We can even support how you move your digital thread to include your vendors and suppliers. ETRAGE focuses on PLM adoption. We help tackle those challenges that a lot of companies have in digital thread adoption by eliminating data silos, integrating legacy data, supporting standardization and automation. We can help enforce data governance, provide PTC training around Creo and Windchill. We can address scalability and mitigate security risks. We address systems like today's session will cover and manage the needs of management as well as end users. We work with small, medium, and large companies that design and manufacture products. And we do that through our own software as well as services. ETRAGE is a software development company, and we partner with PTC around Windchill and Creo. You can check out past webinars on our website and YouTube that specifically address how we solve problems through our products as well as our services. And with that, we'll focus on services, Windchill services today, and I will hand things over to Ephraim.
Thank you so much, Sinead, and welcome everybody to today's webinar. So there's a list of topics that we will cover for today. So we're going to start with the Windchill architecture. So I am bringing up Windchill architecture just to highlight the components that are important for the up and running of Windchill system, and also to mention the components that affect the Windchill performance. So if any of the Windchill components are not performing optimally, that is in turn affect the user experience on the Windchill side. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is the basic or the minimum requirements to have your Windchill system set up. You just need the database server or just a database instance. You need an authentication system or an administrative directory server. And then the Windchill application itself, which would have a web server to render the interface to the end user. And Windchill can be extended or expanded to include additional or optional components to it as well. This is normally based on the user's requirements. So based on those requirements, we can decide which components to add onto the system. So in the next slides, I'll go through each one of these components to explain what they actually do and their role in the Windchill setup. First one being the database system, which is also a data tier level. On the system, it typically stores the metadata information about the objects that you see in Windchill, as well as their relationships. So the table that relates to each other and those relations, it stores and manages that information. Windchill is also compatible with Oracle as well as SQL Server. So if you're running on the Oracle system, you can migrate from Oracle to SQL, but you cannot do a migration from SQL Server to Oracle. The second one being the authentication of administrative directory. So Windchill supports any V3 compliant LDAP. So things like OpenDJ, Windchill will support that. So what the LDAP does in this case is it stores data about the users and the groups. So as of Windchill 12, the groups are now stored directly in the database as well. So the LDAP will only store or manage only the users. Second purpose for Windchill administrative directory is that it stores application-specific configurations for your Windchill system. Third one, in this case, being also one of the main components, Windchill application itself. And there's several components that make up this environment. It is basically the server manager component, as well as the method server. But based on the size of your organization or size of your user base, you could have more than one method server on your system. And what happens is whenever a user sends a request to the server, so I'm searching for something, or I'm trying to retrieve a certain model, that request goes to the server manager, and then the server manager will then decide which method server to send it to. That is normally based on which one is busy or which one is more involved. So you can think of it as like a load balancer between these method servers. Then as part of the method servers, there is also a background method server that handles the background events, such as your workflows, the publishing activities that are handled by the background method server at the back. Then attached to Windchill is the web server, which is also an important component of the setup, which basically hosts all the static contents and also renders all the dynamic content to the end user of the application. Then as an optional component, we have an enterprise directory. So Windchill allows you to configure it with your corporate LDAP or corporate Active Directory, as it's popularly known. So you basically set it up with your Active Directory. You have two options there. You can set it up as only an authenticator. So the users are still saved in the administrative directory over there. But then if you need to authenticate, it goes to the corporate internal LDAP or AD to do that authentication. So in that sort of setup, the username in your Windchill administrative directory must be exactly the same as what you have in your AD directory. And then the second option is you can use it as a base or a source for these users. So the users are created in AD only, and then you in Windchill, you then pull these users in, assign them to the proper licensing groups, and assign them to proper products that they will need access to. So whenever you need to change or reset the password for this account, it will have to be done at the Active Directory level. So then the administrative directory will then be kept there to manage the external accounts or external users that comes into your system, but you don't want them to go through the Active Directory. Then the third optional component would be the indexing server. So indexing is one component of Windchill that is powered by solar. It basically indexes all the file contents as the file is added to Windchill or as the file is being modified. It then goes in the backend and pull keywords from the document content and then push those into the indexing database. And it also indexes all the metadata like a description and so on. So then the user would use those keywords that's been indexed to search for that file. They don't only have to search using a name and number. They can also search for additional information that they know about that particular object. Then we have the mail server. So this is used to simply deliver messages that are sent from the Windchill system onto the client system. So if you're part of a workflow or there's a promotion that you need to approve, you'll then receive an email with that task in it and the link that basically takes you back to Windchill to go and action that particular activity. And then lastly, on the Windchill components is the visualization worker. So this is a system that's responsible for generating neutral file or lightweight viewable files from the CAD data. So it is basically data that's been created or generated for non-CAD users or someone that doesn't need a CAD application to review or inspect any model. So they basically just need a Creo view to open up that model and view it, or they can simply open that drawing as a PDF file and view that data without needing an authoring application like Creo or SolidWorks. And again, with this particular server, depending on the amount of jobs or amount of data that needs to be published, you can set up multiple publishers to basically cater for that. But in terms of help, so if you need, or if you come across any issues with Windchill, an error that you can't sort of understand, or you're looking for any information about Windchill, if you have a Windchill account or PTC account, you can log into this support link. And then when you get there, you get to the search query. You can basically search for anything in there. And then it will return all the articles that basically match your search keyword. And the nice thing with this new search or knowledge base function is it no longer searches only the PTC articles, but they have extended this search to also your PTC communities outside of PTC. The next one is on the very same support portal. You can also browse for documents. If you know exactly what document you're looking for, you can go through the browse document link, specify what I'm looking for. So in this case, I'm looking for a Windchill installation guide for Windchill 13. So you specify all those details and then you search, and it will return exactly the document about that. The next one is in Windchill system itself. You have the Windchill Help Center. So from Windchill 12.0, this Help Center is linked directly to the Windchill Support Help Center page. In the previous versions, you would get an offline Help Center with the installation, and you're able to access that even if you don't have internet. But with this new function that links you directly to Windchill Support Help Center, is that whenever they update contents in the backend, you always have access to the latest and greatest. Then the last one is our ETRAGE support. So if you go to that link over there, it takes you to the page on our support where you can basically populate your information, whatever issues you have, and then it will come through to our help desk support. And then we'll be able to provide you with the information needed. Then the second information that I always use for our customers that are on remote support is this information I'm about to share with you here. So if you go to that article, the article CS over here, it will take you to this knowledge hub with all the articles that takes you to different information on how to fine-tune your Windchill system. It also gives you tips and tricks of how to enhance system performance. And the one that I use a lot and I find very, very important, and I've also picked up that most of the customers that are not on remote support or do not have on-site administrators, they really don't use this function. And it's quite important to optimize the queries that you sort of pull and push from your database server. So there's two articles, one for Oracle and one for SQL. It basically shows you how to gather the database statistics. There's two important things of doing this and doing this regularly, is that it helps firstly it helps the Windchill it helps the database optimizer to always use the latest and correct statistics about the data, but it also improves the time it takes for the database queries. So when someone is searching for data in Windchill or they put in something into the CAD application, that's a query in the back end. So if you run the stats, it always makes sure that it basically optimizes those queries. So I normally suggest this is activity that you run as a weekly activity, or it can be an activity that you run as part of a backup. So at the end of the database backup, you then run this database statistics component. And then the other one is the Windchill configuration assistance. So this is also an important tool that you also must run as a monthly activity on your system. So what it does is it scales your Windchill system based on a couple of things. That is based on the hardware specifications on the server. It looks on that. It also looks at the database, the vault size, the number of users you have in Windchill. And then based on those components, it will then tailor or tune your Windchill system to the best optimized level. And the reason why I would say you must run it monthly is because the database size would change, obviously. The vault size will also increase. There could be a change in the number of users in your Windchill system. So as soon as you rerun this every month, it will basically scale your system and make sure that the system is fully optimized. And then the other one that's been used to say is a daily is the server status. So this gives you information about your system, and I'll go through a couple of components with this. Is the first one, it will show you how many users are active in the system. I use this like every day for all our remote admin customers. And the reason you would want to use this also for the current active users would be if you need to restart the system, but you also want to check if there's people that are logged onto that system. So this details here will give you a sense of how many users are logged into that system. And again, that is for the licensed users. So if you are logged in as WC admin or admin account without the license, it won't show you any number there. Then the second one is the server uptime. So it's important to know how long that server has been running for. And it also helps to see if you have missed that the server restarted for some other reason sometime. And this will also help you sort of see that the server restarted and it was not initiated by an administrator. You want to go in and see why the server restarted. And then again, as part of the monthly maintenance activities, you want to go in and restart the server, clear out the cache, release the garbage collector as well. And then the other component just below that one is the deadlocked. So sometimes you'd have an issue where customer would complain and say they've initiated a workflow, but they haven't received the tasks for those workflow. If you check this, you pick up that the background method server, which is supposed to be handling those type of events, would have deadlocked. So this will be set to yes. And then in that case, you'll have to go in and restart that method server. Or if the users are not able to get into the system, it will normally be caused by that. So if you come into the system before users log in the system, and then you look at this page every day, as soon as you see those deadlocks, you can basically go in and restart the server. Otherwise, no one will be able to log in. And the other important one is the memory. You want to also monitor how much memory a certain component of Windchill is actually using. And then if obviously the usage is very high with less users, you might want to run that WCA component that I told you about, so that it basically optimizes the system for you. Then the other one is the database calls here. So whenever there's an issue or a lack in the query, system query to the database, normally this section here will be red, or some of the sections here will be red. Then in that case, we know that there's an issue with querying the database. And whenever that happens, the best way to fix that issue is basically go in and restart the Windchill, the database service, and then also run those database statistics that I mentioned. And this is just the health check for your server to make sure that the server is connected with your vault, the database, and everything is available. So it will always be this information here. So whenever that availability is below 70%, I would say you might want to check all the components of your Windchill system to make sure that everything is connected properly, because that should be as close to 100% as possible. Same with the response time here. You want to make sure that it's as low as possible. So if this is on like 7 seconds or 10 seconds, you also might want to see what is the issue. It could just be a problem with the database or vault or any other component. Then with this is you get those monitoring tools, and I'll get into them quickly here. Is normally when we ask customers for the logs, they'll normally go to IT logs onto the server, then retrieves those method server logs, background server logs for us. But then there's this option here where you don't even have to remote into the server. So using the log file viewer, you're able to see any Windchill log, so those background and method server logs. You're also able to see the web server logs. If there's an issue with someone connecting to Windchill and you want to see what is the error, why they can connect, you might want to go into this web logs and check what is going on there. Same with the log event histogram. I'll normally use this if I just want to see if there's a warning, an error, or any fatal error in the system that might require my attention. So this allows you to filter that down and search your logs based on the category of those events, warning or error or fatal or any other logged error. Then the other one that I also use time to time is the top secret sample intervals. So this is to check which queries to the database are actually taking long, and maybe slowing down the system, or users are complaining about something when they do a certain activity in the system. I'll normally run this to just check if there is a query that's actually taking quite long to run. And if there's one, I'll normally take it, run it in the database, and just measure how long it takes. And then the fix for that is normally the database statistics that I talked about earlier to fix that issue. Then the other one is the queue monitoring. So these are the background events, your workflow, the publishing. I handled in here, so I queued in here. So it is important to always check this as well as your daily activities. You check this, and if there's anything that's showing under severe or failed entries, you want to go in and investigate why they failed and try to rectify those and resubmit or fix them. The second one is also the waiting entries. This happens a lot with the CAD workers. the publishing of those neutral files. But when you see something like this, you want to monitor it and see to check if this waiting entry is actually going down. If it is not going down, you need to now investigate your publishing server or visualization server performance. And if that's not the issue, you might want to add additional care workers to bring down that load. So yeah, those are the things that you need to check as far as the queues are concerned. And then the other tool that I also recommend that you use is whenever there's a report that a certain workflow is not working or it's been created but it's not showing, or it went to one activity and then from there it just stopped or aborted, you can use this to sort of try and find what the issue is. So what this allows you to do is, if I know exactly the dates of when this was created or initiated, I can basically put those as my filter. I can also exclude all the completed ones because I'm just concerned about the workflows that has got issues. Can exclude that, and I can also filter this based on the error that's been reported on there. And then once the results of the workflow is returned, I can pick the workflow in question. And then from that workflow, I can then pick a node or an activity that seems to be an issue. Then what will happen is at the bottom, it will show you an expression that is in that particular node, if it's a robot node. And then on the right-hand side, it will then show you an error message of why the issue is actually there. Then the next one is the indexing. So with indexing, you want to make sure that you monitor the remaining entries. So this normally should be at 0 at all the time, because that would mean all the data is being indexed. If the users are searching for the data, they're going to get that data, the response from that search. If it's looking like this, some of the components that you'll be searching, because they still to be indexed, they might not be retained as part of the search. So you want to make sure that is normally at 0, and then also the failed entries. If there's failed entries, you might want to check if this is an entry of something that you would normally search for, like an EPM document, a part, or a document, or it's just something that you don't normally search for. Then in that case, you can ignore it. But normally you want to see why it's failed and fix it and resubmit it. And something just quickly of mentioning here is, if you do an upgrade, a system upgrade, normally when you look at this after an upgrade, all the jobs will be processed. But when someone searches for data in the system, it won't return anything. And that is because this database is not in the indexing database. It is just on the Windchill database. And that is because you have reinstalled, obviously, the index server as part of the new version. So in that case, what you need to do is to basically delete everything that's in the list and then re-index everything. After every upgrade or a move where the index reinstallation is required, you might want to re-index. Then the CAD workers, you always want to monitor the status of this. This is also a daily activity. You want to make sure you check what is the status of this. In this case, I can see this has failed to start. So now there's a couple of things that could cause this to fail to start. One could be that the Creo or the SolidWorks that it's using to generate these visualization files is not licensed. Maybe the license is expired, or it could be that the Windchill server can't reach this particular publishing server or visualization server, or it could be that a certain Creo process failed to close properly on the publisher worker. As a result, you cannot create another process, and that's causing it to fail. So this is something you need to check also daily. And again, for the jobs themselves, If you go to publishing job status, under the failed jobs query or table, there would be any failed jobs on the table. Then if you go to it, it will give the details at the bottom. In this case, if you're looking at this particular error at the bottom, at the back, it says there that this failed to retrieve a certain part. This can also be caused by a couple of issues as well. It could be that when the publisher is opening this assembly or a part, there is a pop-up, that check-in pop-up that automatically pops up on the screen, and because it requires the manual click, you can't dismiss that through the publisher. So you might want to fix that before you republish this file. Or it could be that there's an issue with the geometry of the file, and as a result, it's also causing a pop-up that requires to be manually clicked. The third one that I've seen a lot with this error is you'd find that the customer upgrades from Windchill from Creo 10 to 11, but they forget to upgrade the Creo on the published server. So now you end up with a file that's of Creo 11 version. Trying to open that file in Creo 10 will definitely fail. It's not going to work. Then the third one could be the actual file is missing from the vault, and there's nothing to pull into the system. So that will cause this error as well. So yeah, those are the two things you must investigate if there's an issue with publisher. Fail to start or the jobs that are failing to publish. And if you need additional information on those, you can also go into the publishing server and then look at the log files. Those will provide you additional information about the errors. Then for users and access control, so you must definitely make sure that every time someone leaves the company, you remove the account and deactivate that user from the account, from the system. For two reasons. One, you don't want them to access the system anymore. And the second one, you want to free up that additional license server, license file as well, that this user was using. And then when it comes to access control, you want to make sure to use either groups or roles for access controls. So when you're setting up an access control, do not set it up directly for the user, a specific user. But again, I'm going to take it just a step further and say, don't even set those permissions at the groups level. Just set them at the roles only. And then what you do is you add a group to a role, and then you add the users to the group. And if you think about having users in groups and those groups in roles, is you might have an instance where you have 10 products and maybe 5 libraries in your environment. And then there's a new user that joins the company and they need access to all the 10 products. If you have to add an individual user to those products, you have to add them 10 times plus 5 times for the libraries. But if you're adding them to the group, you only add them once to this group, and that group is part of the other products as well. Same again, if you need to, if the user leaves the company, you just remove them from that one group, then they are removed from the whole set of products, as well as the licenses as well, if you've set the license with a group. Then on the license management, so from Windchill 11.1 onwards, PTC have introduced the license management, which enforces you to apply the license and only use what you own. So the first step on here, the settings tab, it is where you'll basically pull in the license or log into Windchill to automatically pull in the license into the system. And then the second one is just all the licenses you have access to. And you can click on these groups and assign users to these groups. And then the license notifications, they'll normally send you these notifications if one of the license components has expired or you have recently updated the licenses. You'll get those notifications. And the last one is for the reports. So time to time, you want to run this reports to see how many licenses you're actually using. This helps you if you need to scale up or scale down with the licenses. This is what this report will give you, to show you who are the recently active users in the system, the registered users, the active users, and if there's any disconnected user. So the user is no longer available in the LDAP, but they in the system. It'll show you that there's such a user. You might want to remove that user and also remove them from the license. So based on this information, you're able to determine if you need to scale up in terms of your licenses or scale down. Then there is also this Windchill diagnostic utility called WinDU and WinRU. We normally use this to just check the health of our system. We normally use it for our health checks to make sure that the system doesn't have any issues. So historically, this tool was only exclusive in the Windchill shell. So you had to remote into the system and run these tools from there, get the report from there, and then either share it with your service providers if they needed it for troubleshooting or for the Windchill upgrade that's coming up. But now, PTC have now introduced this to the site utility as well. So in the site utilities, I'm able to set scheduler for those activities, and I can also set the frequency for them. So say weekly, you must run these specific activities, monthly, these ones, and so on. Specify the start date and time and schedule them. Our advice is do not run the WinRU as part of this activity. And the reason for that is the WinRU activity makes changes to the database and the system. So you don't want to pick that option. You want to just run the WinDU because it just collects this information, puts them in one log file, and make them available for us. You want to set it up for just the WinDU, and then you'll go in and review the logs for the WinDU from the Windchill server itself, and then based on that, you then apply whatever fixes you need to apply. Lastly, before we go through the quick demo, is the Windchill backup. This is important for any system. I always say that the Windchill admin is as good as his or her backup. So this is something that you need to run daily. The Windchill database backup must be done daily. And there's two options to do this, a hot and a cold backup. Hot backup is just a backup that execute while the system is running. So you don't have a downtime with this, but there's a couple of setbacks for that. You might lose the sync between Vault and database, for instance, or the data in there might be consistent because as the backup is being done, some data is written to the system. So for something like this, which is done while the system is running, I'll say do it completely outside of working hours, like 11 p.m. at night. You don't run this. Then the cold backup, on the other hand, Windchill gets stopped in this process, and then we do the full backup of the system, full Vault backup, and with this one, we always know that the data will always be consistent. Part of the daily backup, you need to back up your LDAP as well. Any Windchill configurations that has changed, things like property files, or any customizations files. As soon as you make changes to them, yeah, you want to back up those as well. Then the indexing database, I would say you don't really need to back this up because it's easy to set it up or recreate it and re-index. So you don't have to go through that. Then lastly is the file vault that you want to make sure that you back up. So at this point, I'll quickly go through Windchill system to show you some of these components that I've shown. So the first one would be just the help. If you go to quick links, help center, you'll notice that this is actually taking me to support.ptc.com. So I'll always have access to the latest information as far as that goes. That is for help. And then now, if I go to browse here, because I'm logged in as a WC admin and utilities, this is where you'd find those administration tools that you would use. So also when it comes to help, when I'm on this page, you'll always see this help center icon here. So this is called a context help. So this, if you click on it, it will take you to the help center just about the site utilities information. So if you need anything about the page you on, help about it, if you click that icon, it will take you to the help about that information. Then this is the server status that I was just talking about. That as a system administrator, you want to check this daily before the users come into the system. And I can see there's no one logged in because it's just me and I don't have a license linked to this account. And you'll see this are also hyperlinked. If I click on that, it takes me to a report page. So I can use this report page to see how many users have logged into the system during a specific time frame. So in this case, if you're looking at this, we can see there's only one user that has joined or logged into the system from that time. It's not a surprise because this is just my development system. But if I just expand this maybe to 35 days, I can see that during that time, there were about 2 users that logged onto the system. Yeah, so this can also be used to just gauge how many users are actually using the Windchill system. And then, yep, the information about the uptime of my background method server and the background method server and the method server. And something to mention here is if you're having an issue with the background method server, it's actually deadlocked or nothing is actually going out as far as the workflows are concerned, you can turn off or restart only the background method server, and then the system will still be running. So you won't get a downtime. It will just stop the method server and then restart it again until it's back on, and then it will start processing those background activities. Then I want to quickly go into the monitoring tools. So in here, there's a log file viewer that I talked about. So in here, you'll then specify what you're looking or what you want to look at. Is it a Windchill log files or is it a web server log files? So in our case, we're just going to say we're looking for Windchill log files. I can also search for a specific string that is in that log. So in this case, I can say, let's look for anything that has an error in it, and it must match that case because this is how the Windchill error will be reported in the logs. And then here I can specify the amount of days that the log has been created. And click OK. So it goes and searches for my logs, but specifically the ones with the errors in it. There's one for background method server. You can see already there's a log entry for this. I can quickly go to a method server log with this one here. Open it up, and I can see immediately from here, it's been highlighted that these are the errors that I have, and I can go and investigate why this has failed. And yeah, according to this error, it looks like it's something that the system was trying to send to PTC, but I'm not worried because this has not been set up. It cannot send the logs to PTC at this stage. Go back to my tools again. Same with that log event histogram. Like I said, with this, I can then sort of search by those particular errors or any tags to the errors or entries in the log file. So I'm searching for anything that's 6 hours long with a warning. So because I've picked a warning, it will show me anything warning, error, fatal, or okay. So this is what's going to be returned now. You can see there's a warning in that method server manager. There's an error in the other one, and so on. So by clicking on this links here, it will take me directly to those errors, and from there I can check and decide what the issue is. Then lastly, on this page, I'm going to show you the SQL queries. So that is for that time. And let's click OK. and then it returns, these are the queries that have been generated on the method server and the background method server. And I can also see from here that this took about 13 seconds to generate, and that took about 19 seconds to generate. So I can go into this log, check this SQL statement that you see over here, run this in my database server to see what is returning and what is actually the time is actually taking directly in the database. And based on that information, I can run my database stats and rerun this to see if it has improved. And if it hasn't, I have to now to go in and dig deep onto the error and see. So there's also a stack trace about this error that can also provide you additional information about that. Right. And next I'm going to show you the indexing administrator. So every day I'll go in here and look at this data. So in my case, you'll see I've got just one that's remaining. And in this case, I know it's a document and I know why it's in there. It's because I'm currently modifying this particular document. It's currently checked out. So until I check it in, it will then process and index this file. But whenever you see that remaining, you wanna check why it is in that remaining column. It might be that your indexing server service is not running. Then the second one is the failed entries. So here I can see I've got about 6 that's failed. And if I just look at this and see which object, in this case, or in my case, it's a report template. So no one is searching for this template. So I don't need to worry about that failed entry at this stage. But if it was a legit entry, I was going to just reset that failed entry and then rerun it again. Next thing I want to show is the queue. So in the queue, I can see on the publishing queue, there's a lot on the total entry that's been created. And if I go into that, I can see the status says all completed. So not everything you see in these logs is actually an issue or a failed entry. Some of them are just in here because they went through a queue and you want to capture the status of those queues. So in this case, I can go in and delete those successful ones, so the completed ones. By just selecting them, just clicking on the delete to remove them. But I'll show you a best way to actually delete those that completed in a bit. Then the next one, I can go and look at this one here for propagations. So this is for the workflows. So normally when you get in here, the ones that have this entry arguments to it, you can safely delete those because it simply means the data that's linked to it was either deleted from the system or the whole process was cancelled. The whole workflow was cancelled or stopped. So this ones I can simply just select on all of them and remove them from a queue. But for this ones with the link, if you click on the actual link, it takes you to the workflow about this particular flow. So from here, I can see is a workflow that was linked to this particular CAT part. So I can go to this CAT part and look at the workflows that were linked to it, and then fix those. I know I don't have to worry about these entries. I can actually delete them because they're related to an ERP connector or ERP process that I had set up on the system. So I'm not using it anymore. That is why I can get rid of those as well. So now, so for those entries, yes.
Just want, before you move on to your next topic, I just want to let you know we have about 10 minutes left of this webinar.
Okay, cool. I'll wrap up quickly. Thank you. All right, so the next thing I wanted to show is the job monitor as well in here. So these are the publishing jobs. So from this table here, I can filter this based on the status of the jobs. So in this case, I can see that all these jobs are successful, but let me go in and look for any failed jobs in this case. So there's a list of field jobs. If I pick any of this at the bottom here, it shows me the details about the error. So this I've already investigated. I know they're failing because there is no related vault files for them. And lastly, I want to quickly show you the license management side. So in the license management, like I said, there's two ways under the settings tab to retrieve the license. You can log in with your login details on here, and then pull that license file. It will automatically pull it for you, or you can retrieve the license file from PTC and then import it in here. Pulls it populates this information on this page, and then in the report side, if I want to check the usage, I can generate a report file for this, and then it generates a HTML file for me. And from here, I can see on my system, I've got 10 registered users, 11 which are active because there's one that's disconnected. So I want to go in and delete or remove the one that's disconnected from my system, and also remove them from my license group. Sinead, I am going to stop here and hand it over back to you, if there's any questions.
Thank you, Ephraim. So at this time, we do have a few minutes left. If you guys have any questions, please use that question icon, and we're happy to take those right now. Or if things come up after this webinar, you can reach out to anyone at ETRAGE. We're happy to answer your questions. Ephraim, while we wait for any questions to come in, just want to let you guys know that ETRAGE does attend PTC user groups, as well as I had mentioned, we do bi-monthly webinars. So just wanted to share some of the upcoming events that we'll be at, which includes Badgerland PTC user group next week, and the Northeast Ohio NoPug user group at the beginning of June. And between those two events, we will have a couple of webinars. You can check out our ETRAGE Creo drawing notes search tool, as well as looking at the importance of Creo training for your Windchill users. Looks like we don't have any questions right now. You'll see that Ephraim's contact as well as my contact information are provided on the screen. You can also just reach us through our etrage.com website, and we're happy to start any conversations you may have. With that, we'll call it for a day, and thank you all again for attending. Hope to see you next time.